that beautiful? Wow. That is the sound of Ukrainians singing to keep each other company as they were seeking shelter from the missile attacks. It has been a very terrifying situation over there. And I feel like, just as we started to think perhaps things had calmed down, quite the opposite. In fact, we last checked in with our most recent guest. I can't remember how long it was. Do you remember 3 months ago? I feel like it was this summer, Aaron, that we last spoke to
Well,
Jesse.
I remember he reached out to us and we thought, what a kind of crazy story. What a great story, but kind of crazy at the same time. He wanted to get an ambulance to Ukraine. We'd heard back then, of course, how bad things were. Then things eased off a bit, right? And then now they've escalated again. And suddenly people in Kyiv who thought they were safe from this are finding out they're not, because the Russians have started bombing in again. Kyiv now as well.
And so this is we have a good news update, but by the same time, it's kind of, it's scary, to be honest.
Yeah, the fact that there are air raid sirens going off there now every day, and those people in a bomb shelter, you just heard singing off the top. I know they had kids doing the same.
Exactly.
It's not getting better. We can only hope it will. But our guest actually managed to get this done.
Yes, although there were missiles going off while he was there. Jesse Alexander is a YouTuber, ex-Montrealer, managed to get this ambulance delivered to Ukraine. Let's find out more from Jesse. You're home safe and sound now, though, Jesse?
Yes, thanks for having me back. I managed to deliver the ambulance that we bought with donations from people all over the world and quite a few from the English Montreal community, so thanks to everybody for that. And now I'm back home safe and sound in Vienna, but it wasn't the most relaxing weekend and Monday that I've ever had, that's for sure.
So can you just recount the story of why you wanted to do this, why you felt it was important that it get done, based on what?
Sure. Well, I guess there are two main reasons why I decided I wanted to make some kind of tangible contribution to help Ukraine and Ukrainians. One is kind of a moral and ethical obligation. I really think that it's wrong that Russia has invaded and is causing this kind of death and destruction. And the other one is personal, because my partner is Ukrainian, although she lives here in Vienna. And so this made it personal as well. I've got friends there. I've got a mother-in-law there. And so I wanted to make sure to do something about it because I felt kind of powerless. So I joined up with a local charity here in Vienna that's run by Ukrainians who live in Vienna. And we worked together to raise the funds to get this ambulance, which I then drove over the weekend to Lviv in western Ukraine with one of the volunteers from the team. And we delivered it there to the humanitarian, to the emergency services. They're going to fix it up give it a tune-up and a paint job, and send it to the east, the region of Donetsk, which is one of the hardest hit regions at the front.
Wonderful. Can you remind us how much money you had to raise to be able to buy this ambulance?
Yeah, to get the ambulance, to then pay all the fees, and to put some medical supplies and medical equipment inside of it, some devices to help in treating the wounded. It cost us about 10,000 euros, which I think is about 12 or 13,000 Canadian dollars.
Well done, Jesse. And tell us a little bit more about this harrowing journey that you had to actually drive the ambulance there and deliver it.
Well, I mean, it's harrowing by our normal day-to-day standards, but it's obviously not much compared to what a lot of Ukrainians have been facing for months. But basically, it took about 15 hours of driving and waiting at the border to get it there. Then the next day, we had the handover and some paperwork. And then I thought, okay, I've got one free day before some friends of friends were driving back to Vienna. I was going to hitch a ride with them. And that's when the missiles started. It started Monday morning. The air raid sirens went off. Somehow I didn't hear them. And anyway, I woke up, went to the shelter underneath the hotel with all the other Ukrainians who were there, including one woman who'd fled from the east because of the violence and was now getting bombed again. And it's one of those strange things. You're sitting there in the basement of a hotel with a bunch of people you don't know, and you just don't know what's going to happen. I kept telling myself, statistically, the chances are quite low. And I didn't hear anything, but you never know when it's coming. And that's the strange part. It's absurd. The day before, I was at an open-air jazz concert for a charity for helping the war effort. And the next moment, you're waiting where the next missile is going to fall. We heard one explosion. I don't know exactly how far away it was, but thankfully that was it. And then when we drove out of town to go back to the border and back to Vienna, we saw a bunch of columns of smoke coming up from places where there were electrical substations and train tracks and that sort of thing. So obviously they targeted the infrastructure. And that's basically what it was. It was just a kind of strange experience of this unpredictability where nothing is happening. There's a bit of tension in the air, and you don't know when something might happen. And thankfully, nothing came in our area, and we were able to get out and get back home after having done the job that we came there to do.
You know, as I hear you describe that, I can't help but think, so that's your sort of travel through this, trying to deliver that ambulance. Imagine people living through this every single day, not knowing, is today, will there be an air raid siren? Won't there? Are things back to normal the way you described it, or aren't they? And we obviously can't imagine what that must be like. Once you got this done, though, Jesse, was the thought, I want to do something else, or is that it?
Absolutely. I have to say, I don't think I'm going to feel satisfied while the suffering is continuing, which of course it is every day in Ukraine. So I'm going to take a moment here to relax because it was a stressful undertaking for me. And I'm going to keep working with this local charity here in Vienna called Ukraine, YO Ukraine, because they're providing constant shipments of humanitarian aid and they need people to volunteer locally. And I'll do that for a while until another project comes along, or until I'm recuperated and ready for another bigger project. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it now.
I found it pretty interesting, Jesse, how you described that you were, while you're listening, while you're taking shelter and hearing the sounds, that you're going through the stats, like, okay, I should be okay. I should be safe. Statistically speaking, I'm relatively safe. I'm wondering, and that sounds like a very logical, level-headed approach. I'm wondering how your loved ones feel about you having experienced this and being in harm's way.
Well, obviously, it's a stressful situation for them as well, but I think that, they understand that it's important, it's the right thing to do, and that I think it's important enough to take this very minimal risk, to be honest, compared to what a lot of other people are risking in this conflict. So, yes, my family was worried. Yes, my girlfriend was very worried on the morning when the mass missile attacks began. But, We live in a democracy in Austria and in Canada, and now it's basically under threat because of this war in Europe. And we've got to do stuff, not only wait for governments to do things, but we as citizens have to do these kinds of things to support the Ukrainians. And that's why I decided to do it in spite of the relatively small risk, which then sort of came to pass. But we made it, and that's the main thing.
Absolutely.
Well done.
These are wonderful stories, including the one we had a young man on, remember, talking about bringing backpacks to Ukrainian children. Here's another case of an individual taking this upon himself. Jesse, I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you finally got to get it done and basically got through it and saw what was there firsthand. And I thank you so much for letting us know and coming back on with us. We appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Jesse Alexander, sorry.
I was just going to say, Jesse, when you start it up again, when you're raising funds next time, let us know so that we can help you spread the word, okay?
I'll do that. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
There you go.